All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for making it to this event, whether you're in person at Red Hat in Melbourne or joining us online or whenever you're watching the live stream. So really excited to announce our first Kubernetes meetup and actually be able to host it in person. A little bit about myself. This group originally was started by Yongkang He, my father, and we originated in Singapore. And we were able to expand to Australia after just a couple of months. So it's really exciting to be able to see you all here in person. Today, so that's a bit about myself. I'm just studying at Monash University, currently just in commerce and computer science. I'll just move on to the next slide now. And we also have our speakers tonight, of course, Yongkang and where's Gary? Gary is over on the back there. So we're doing the topics for tonight. The next one. So before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the land that we are on, the Kulin Nations, and pay respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. And in case you haven't checked out, which I'm sure all of you in person have already, this is the link to our Kubernetes Australia meetup group. And I'd like to thank our sponsors today. First of all, of course, Red Hat for the venue and the generous swag and food and drinks. And the speakers, of course, thank you, Paul. And CloudCasa, you can see by the banner. And of course, Jennifer and many more. So with that, I'd like to pass on to Yongkang for the main agenda and the rest of that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Louisa. Thanks, everybody, again.
Thanks for coming. So let's continue. So first of all, thanks
to our volunteers.
So listed here, all of my volunteers are from Singapore. Okay, the reason I list all of them here is I need more sponsors from here. It's very important. If I ask a question, do you guys think Australia, when it comes to Kubernetes, we are ahead of the rest of the country? Do you think so? No, not at all.
Not at all.
That's why we need more volunteers to help us. We have the Kubernetes community. This is what I'm thinking. Let's join us to learn, to share what you learn continuously. Okay. With that, I include a few links here. So if anyone are interested to join us as a volunteer, okay, here's a link. And we are also continuously looking for sponsors and speakers. You don't want to see every time just me here to talk. I want every one of you to join us to share. Okay? If anyone are interested to join us, either volunteer, sponsor, or speakers, so let us know. So let me introduce our mission. So this is the mission I put together from last July when I started my Kubernetes Singapore meetup. So I make it, the name is called K8SUG. Okay, very easy, simple name, K8SUG, Kubernetes User Group. So our mission is we are very passionate about Kubernetes technologies. Our mission is to accelerate the Kubernetes adoption. I feel like Australia, as a country, We are highly virtualized. In terms of virtualization rate, we are probably the #1 highly virtualized country in the world. And also in terms of the cloud adoption rate, we are also very high. But when you look at the Kubernetes, we are behind. So that's why we need more and more people to continuously to learn, to share. Is it hard to learn Kubernetes? Huh? I think probably the headset doesn't work. Let me put back. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Oh, okay. Now connected. Yeah, maybe it's far from my laptop. Good.
Okay. It is very hard. You can see it's an eye chart. So many stuff to learn. How we can quickly to learn. So last year, when I actually, so the time when I set up the Kubernetes Meetup, actually it was once in July when I joined the AWS user group, and there are 4 topics. 3 of them are Kubernetes. So that immediately triggered me. I need to set up a group just to focus on the Kubernetes. So August, I set up the group. In September, I had my first K8SUG Singapore meetup running. By now, 7 months, we got 1,400 members. So you see how many people are willing to learn Kubernetes. I think the same thing in Australia. I only started last month. I set up the group. By now, we got 160 plus members. You see the popularity. So I do appreciate everybody to join us to learn Kubernetes. Okay, just to give you some, all the photos are from my previous meetup in Singapore. The first one was at AWS. You see the group listed here, the photo here. We don't have many people. So I'm very happy here. You see the first time here in Australia, we got a lot more people compared to my Singapore meetup. And the second one, I actually did at Red Hat in Singapore office. And followed by Google and then Alibaba Cloud. So the reason is I'm a multi-cloud guy. I love all different cloud. If you ask me which cloud I like the most, my answer is I love Kubernetes. Kubernetes on any cloud, okay? So then following months, I got Google continuously sponsor me the venue. So every month, starting from this year, we're going to have 1 meetup at Google in Singapore. So this is another one also at Google, and followed by another one. We're working with Sneak. And if you guys are interested to check the previous recording, I do have a link listed here, m.k8SUG.com. M stands for Meta or media. So you can find all of my previous meetup details. Let me just confirm one thing. I don't know if the people online can hear me. Can anyone join us online? Let me know. Sorry, guys, just give me 1 second. By the way, the persona borrow me the headset. Where is the persona? Oh, thank you so much.
Shout out.
I was planning to bring my own, but I left at home. So the reason I needed the headset is mainly for the recording and also for the people joining us online. So let me reconnect.
This time I can hear you.
You can't hear or you can?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, that. Sorry guys, did I block? I might have just close to my laptop just to make sure the recording is all right. Okay, let me introduce today's topic. So I put together here. So the first topic, anyone know what the GEAR stands for? I made the word, the most popular managed Kubernetes. So GEAR, G for GKE, okay, E for EKS, A for AKS, and R for, do I guess? Red Hat? Roncha. Come on, guys, we are at Red Hat. So R actually when you talk about the managed OpenShift, the managed Kubernetes, Red Hat have one of the very popular managed OpenShift. It's called ROSA. The Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS. So I made the word gear. So the first topic, I will give you some more details about the most popular managed Kubernetes. And then followed by, I will invite Paul Foster from Red Hat. He will give us more deep dive about the ROSA. That's one of the most popular managed Kubernetes offerings. And after that, I will talk about CloudCasa. So basically, day one, you need to set up a cluster. Red Hat makes life easier. You can deploy a ROSA cluster. And once you deployed, how to secure my containers, how to back up my containers, how to make the DR easier. So I will talk about CloudCasa, how CloudCasa, the managed backup, makes life easier. And the last but not least, and we will have an open mic time, and we will have take a group photo, if you guys don't mind. And we can have a little bit more social and drinking. Does that sound? Yeah, all good? Okay, with that, let me swap to a different slide. Just give me 1 second. All right, let's continue. So a little bit of myself, I love Kubernetes. I'm fully certified on Kubernetes. And most recently, just about 1 week or 2 weeks ago, I become a CNCF ambassador. When I introduce myself, I'm just ambassadors. I'm just the organizers. I don't have a full-time job right now, but I'm actively looking for some other full-time job. Yeah. So what I love to do, I love to learn. By now, I did 60 plus times multi-cloud certifications. I just keep doing the learning. Yeah. And I share what I learn. And because I keep doing that, I do have quite a lot of the followers. So if you check my LinkedIn, I got 27 followers. I mean, 27K. Okay. And I also created a video to show to show my friends how to spin up an AKS cluster, EKS cluster, GK, ROSA, Arrow, etc. So from my YouTube channel, you can find all different Kubernetes cluster. And also the day two, how to do the backup, do the DR, do the migration. I also created automation code, which is available from a GitHub page, and also pretty popular. If you look at the clones, every 2 weeks, hundreds of clones, people follow me they just want to spin up a cluster to do some testing, to do some learning. So it makes it easier. You don't have to, if you look at the official documentation, whatever it's a Google, AWS or Azure, it takes ages for you to load. So it makes life easier. Few minutes, you can spin up a new cluster. I also have a group chat. The group chat is more to share my slides. For example, I have an upcoming meetup to share for the people to collaborate with us, okay? You guys see, I'm certified on top of 5 public cloud. So in all professional or expert level. Okay, I've done enough show off. Okay, let's come to the topic Kubernetes. It's a fast growing infrastructure software. I came from the traditional world. So when I started to work, it's all the key critical application running on Unix platform. So AIX, Solaris, HQX. So back to that time, the database, you got a DB2, you got Oracle, Sybase, etc. But nowadays, it's so different. So if you look at the, that was before 2000 and early 2000, there is a big shift to the virtualization. So that becomes VMware is very popular. by 2015, you can see a lot of people adopting the containers, especially the Docker containers. Fast forward to 2020, you will see there is only one container orchestration platform, which is Kubernetes. But there is all different flavor of the Kubernetes, supported by all different vendors. Do you guys know who is the biggest contributor? Which vendor is the biggest contributor to the Kubernetes? Oh, Google, yeah. Who is the second? Yes, you guys are all good. Oh, awesome. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Red Hat is one of the big contributors to the Kubernetes open source project. So my point is, why learning Kubernetes OpenShift? I don't know if you guys can see. I did a search 2 days ago. How many Kubernetes jobs from a seeker? You can see close to 900 jobs. And if I do a search of OpenShift, almost 200 jobs. That's amazing. If we do a little bit of learning, we can retire earlier. Serious. And if you're really good at Kubernetes OpenShift, you can make a lot of money. You can retire earlier, just like a Paul. Yeah? Okay. But if you guys are interested, if you do the same search, if you try to find Google GKE or AKS, EKS, even AWS EKS, there are not a lot of jobs. That's why my first meetup, I wanted to do OpenShift. Do more learning on OpenShift, make more money, we can retire earlier. Yep. Yeah, very good point. That's another eye chart. The reason I want to point out here is, if you look at here, one of the big category, it's about a platform, which is mainly the Kubernetes distributions, the certified Kubernetes distributions, all of these. I can't see. Even I make it bigger, all the Kubernetes distributions I took the screenshot from March. There are 149 Kubernetes distributions. So what are the most popular one you guys see? Yeah, absolutely. Amazon got so popular, so many install base. According to CNCF survey, you can see. So the top managed Kubernetes, Amazon EKS, Azure AKS, Google GKE. The reason people go to the managed Kubernetes or managed OpenShift because hand-tuning your own Kubernetes cluster. Technically, you can set up your own vanilla Kubernetes, but it's very hard. It takes ages. How to make it happen? You don't want to spend a few days or weeks just to set up the cluster. That's why people go to manage. You just need a few minutes. You can spin up a new cluster. So this is a survey from CNCF back to the research done in 2021, but it was released in 2022. I actually slightly disagree with their order. They say EKS is the top, second is AKS, the third is GKE. I did my own research. So back to 1 year ago, I asked the LinkedIn people. So people say EKS, yeah, definitely EKS is pretty popular, 51 votes. And the second one, no, not AKS. The second one is Google GKE. Google GKE, definitely, you got lots of people, lots of the support. And I put Alibaba here as well. So back to 1 year ago, I saw Forest Wave, there is a report saying who are the leaders. You got a Red Hat OpenShift, you got a Google GKE, you got Alibaba Cloud. That's why I put the 4 to do the research. But if you look at 2 weeks ago, I did another one this year. So you see GKE now jumped to 35. And where is EKS? You see the gap.
AKS, if I want to use it, very easy. I just open a free account and start making a EKS cluster, AKS cluster.
Yes.
If I want to make OpenShift, it's not possible. That's why these are the higher number. Else, if you it's not about the actual enterprise usage, it's just like individual user usage.
Yeah,
you have to change the heading, individual user usage, not the enterprise usage. It's different actually.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's also the question of whether
Yeah.
this is what they
So-
think.
Second point, yeah, correct.
Yeah, so basically what I put here, it's pretty simple. Are you aware of which one is the most popular one you think? Oh. So people think this is the way they think. So which is match, the EKS is still very popular. But if you look at the gap comparing to last year, so 51 voted EKS last year, this year 39. The gap between the second one only 4%, but last year it's 19%. So that's the one. I also this year I include. Yeah, those are also pretty popular. One of the most popular managed. I mentioned my YouTube channel, right? If you look at my top 5 most watched videos, you can see OpenShift, you can see Google, Amazon EKS. AKS actually pretty behind. I do see some other like VMware Tanzu also listed here, but not in general, not that popular yet. So how to spin up a new cluster? So I created the automation. If you spin up a GKE cluster, only 5 minutes. And it is the latest one. That's the key difference. If you spin up a GKE, I created the automation. You can spin up 5 minutes. You can spin up a GKE 1.26. But the rest of the guys are still 1.25. And the EKS automation, you need 18 minutes to spin up the same cluster, plus the PostgreSQL deploy. And the AKS are also pretty fast. You only need 4 minutes to spin up an AKS cluster. And the ROSA, I let Paul to talk about more about the ROSA. They do need 30 minutes, but it comes more stuff together. So which means it comes to everything. You don't have to, like the rest of the Kubernetes offering, it's just an engine. You don't have the rest of the stuff, monitoring, logging, CI/CD pipeline. For ROSA, it comes to everything, okay? So my automation code, it's available from our GitHub page. And I also have the automation, the video recorded for different platform. So GKE is the first cloud, first major cloud to support the latest version. Right now, 1.26. I think 1.27 is coming. It could be this week or next week. And the second one actually surprised, it's IBM Cloud, released 1.26. Okay, if you guys don't want to use the cloud, you want to use your laptop, I also provided a few options here. So you might want to use the Minikube or Micro K8S or K3S, Docker desktop or Rancher desktop. You can literally just minutes. You can spin up a Kubernetes cluster from your laptop. So for Minikube, I do have a video to talk about. You basically walk you step by step how to create a Minikube from your laptop. Anyone want to get certified? I'm sharing my experience. So when I was doing the KCNA, I just used the free resource. It's available from a YouTube channel. The guy's name is Andrew Brown. I just watched his video and then I do the certification. If you're developers, you might be more interested to do the CKAD. And I use the resource from Udemy or Code Cloud. The reason I put both of them, essentially, if you buy from Udemy, it's cheaper, basically. But same training, same resources. You have all the labs, training labs from Code Cloud, it's cheaper. And in addition, after you schedule the exam, you basically, you got the access to Killer Shell. You got 36 hours. This is a simulator. It's very close to the actual exam. So when you talk about the Kubernetes exam, except the KCNA, the rest of the CKA, CKAD, or CKS, it's completely the lab. You don't get the multi-choice questions. You have to do it. You need to could be asking a question, how to create a deployment, how to upgrade the cluster, things like that. Okay, any one of you guys are certified on Kubernetes? Oh, that's great. Yeah, great to see a lot of people also certified on Kubernetes. Well, that is actually, I would say, you don't have to get certified, but the thing is that when you are trying to get certified, you will push yourself to continue to learn a little bit more. That's my opinion. Okay, I also included a few links about how to create the cluster from a different platform. So that's about my talk about the most popular Kubernetes. Any questions? All good? You guys agree? The most popular one, or you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I heard recently that EKS, they've made about $2 billion out of it. Some crazy stat like that. I mean, EKS dominates the cloud market.
The EKS or the AKS?
I think it's EKS.
EKS,
yeah.
yeah,
Amazon.
Amazon, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So don't quote me on that, but they make an obscene amount of money out of EKS. It's been a huge success for AWS. And my background is actually EKS before I joined Red Hat last year. And, you know, it is a good product, but like I say, it's for, you know, it's a build your own cluster, right? EKS is fundamentally just raw Kubernetes with auto scaling and SDS integration. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's good to know. But the revenue for EKS, it comes primarily from the compute layer as well, right? Like, or do we have separate subs for separate costing for EKS?
I'm not sure how the subscription worked for the EKS, to be honest. The payments, I was never involved in that.
From what I recall, I mean, it's primarily the compute layer in total.
I think, yeah, you're basically just paying for the EC2. Yeah, basically, yeah. They certainly don't pay for the control plane. Whereas currently with ROSA, and I will talk a little bit about this in my talk, you do pay for the control plane. And that 30 minutes we were talking about, why ROSA takes 30 minutes, is largely because you're spinning up that control plane every time. But we are moving to this new model this year. It's called hosted control planes, or HyperShift, which is basically where we're going to move to the control plane will be just pods on another Kubernetes cluster. So you will have these big Kubernetes clusters that are just running the control planes of all the other clusters. Okay, so it's a new concept. That's what similar to EKS, and also that time of building a cluster will come down to 30 minutes. I think I will cover ROSA.
Yes. So the next topic, we will invite Paul to talk about the ROSA. I know you guys have questions. So why we should use ROSA, especially in the you did mention, yeah. Why not the EKS, right?
Well, it's my favorite topic, mate. So you're gonna, you know, that one. Share.
Yeah, you should be able to share.
Can I just share the whole screen?
Can you do
Oh,
mute?
that's desktop. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, my name is Paul. I am a black belt, which is a fancy title that I don't know why they've gone with this. Azure started it, but they're a black belt team. Really, I'm just a cloud guy. I've been in banking for 20 years, mostly in London. During that time, I got into Kubernetes 2017 with a product called ICP. Does anyone know? ICP with IBM version of OpenShift. Just they came out with it just around the same time that they purchased Red Hat, 3 billion or what it was. It was a cool product. I got into it because I worked in Tivoli. Does anyone remember Tivoli? Yeah. So I was a Tivoli contractor and I did a lot of monitoring and alerting. They needed someone to do monitoring and alerting the new Kubernetes platform. So I went in and built their Prometheus stack out. It was a fantastic thing in my career because I got out of Tivoli and there was 0 jobs in Tivoli at the world at that time. It was completely dead. It gave me another pathway in my career. It's been amazing since, to be honest. From there, I went on to, I was in London at the time. That was at Lloyds Bank. And I moved back home for 15 years and ended up working at Bendigo Bank. And that's where I moved into public cloud. We built out open banking on EKS at Bendigo Bank. The government mandated that for K2. And then I ended up in Red Hat, which I'm very happy to be here. It's a wonderful company to work for. I was always a big fan of Red Hat. I know some of you guys I always had a good story around open source and Linux, right? Linux, Red Hat, enterprise Linux. So I did try and get a feel for the crowd tonight, what skills everyone has. I didn't really get around to everyone. I thought I might just ask a question before we get going. I've come in with like, I've got a deck and I've got some I'm going to talk through ROSA. But first of all, how many people here Kubernetes? One. Put your hand up. I know you're good. I know you're good. So how many people would say they're wanting to learn Kubernetes? Yeah. Okay. Right, awesome. Cool. Okay. How many people have been in Amazon Cloud? Yeah. And for work, for during your job, yeah. Yep. Cool. How many people know what STS is in Amazon Cloud? Yeah. STS. Yeah. STS. How many people know what IAM is in Amazon Cloud? Right. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. That gives me a good feel. How many people know about Terraform? Awesome. Fantastic. So you all like to use Terraform? Yeah? Oh, fantastic. That's great. What's that?
We have to use it.
You have to use it.
Because we want to be across cloud.
100%. 100%. I mean, for me, everything starts with IAC and GitOps. I always prefer to deploy applications with GitOps and build with IAC, right? Yes, there is Ansible. I'm trying to move across to Ansible, but
They don't like that.
they're not. It's funny. When people talk about Ansible and Terraform, they're not really a compete. It's a misconception that I mean, they both are infrastructure as code tools, but they also complement each other. And I've seen since coming to Red Hat, people run Ansible and kick off Terraform with it. So and really in that space of provisioning Amazon infrastructure, Ansible really isn't what Terraform is, right? Terraform is better in that situation, even though we are Red Hat.
If in case of Terraform, whereas Ansible requires a lot of stuff that you want to put in the folder.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. I would imagine they must be looking to bridge that gap. Obviously, I don't work in that Ansible area, but I would imagine they're trying to bridge that gap. That's great. How about I start off with a little bit of an overview of OpenShift. So, let me just do the slideshow. Okay. Right. So, let me just get rid of that. Yeah. Okay. So, just going to go through a little overview of what OpenShift is, right? At its core, OpenShift is raw Kubernetes, right? There is a Kubernetes, it's just a standard Kubernetes at the base of it, right? As we said earlier, Red Hat is the second biggest contributor to it behind Google. Oops, going the wrong way. We deploy our Kubernetes on RHEL Core OS, which is our hardened Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It is one of the more secure Linux platforms you can build on. And it can run anywhere, right? We can run it on physical bare metal. We can run it virtual in the cloud. We can run it in a private cloud or a public cloud. And we can also run it at the edge now. There's a couple of products that are out at the moment. One's called MicroShift. So Kubernetes is getting smaller, and they're trying to make it so that you can run Kubernetes on edge devices, right? So think of an exchange or something with some sort of gateway on it. You can put OpenShift down there and run some some containers down on your devices at the edge. You know, the world is moving towards having sensors everywhere. You know, they're going to have sensors on your garbage bins, right? And the guy driving the garbage truck's going to drive past your house and know that your bin's full, right? That's where we're heading. And having Kubernetes at the edge is all about that, right? So this next layer is really what sets OpenShift apart from standard Kubernetes distributions, right? When we're talking EKS, and EKS does this a little bit, right? And so does AKS and GKE. They do their own layer on top of Kubernetes, right? It's not the same as OpenShift, right? So things I'm talking about here are the networking, right? It comes with its own specifically developed network solution. The ingress components, right, come baked into it. It has a UI, and we'll go through the UI later. Not all Kubernetes distributions have a UI, right? So OpenShift has a really slick UI, which is for me, is a bit of a productivity boost. It comes with Prometheus and Thanos, which is personally, I think Prometheus is one of the most difficult things to get going on your clusters and do correctly. Monitoring is actually quite difficult. But using Prometheus, it's free, right? And it comes part of the product. I'm a massive fan of Prometheus. You can pay a lot of money for monitoring tools. It comes with its own registry, LDAP authentication. It comes with the concept of users and groups, right? Not all Kubernetes flavors have that concept of groups, which in an enterprise organization is really important, right? I'm a member of this group and I have access to these things. It's a fundamental requirement in an enterprise organization. Products like EKS and that they don't have these this concept, right? It's much more a loose association of user roles. Okay, so it's really like they call it a turnkey application development platform, right? There's about 30 components that we're talking about here that sit on the Kubernetes platform, and they're all delivered as operators. I'm not going to go into operators too much. Has the people heard of an operator on Kubernetes? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Have you heard of Helm charts? Yep. So an operator is like it's like a state machine, right? When you deploy an operator, it will manage certain versions of applications of the type that the operator is. For example, if you deployed the Istio operator, it would manage multiple control planes, right? And keep them at certain versions. And it always works to keep them in a certain state because it's all done with custom resource definitions, right? Which is a Kubernetes construct, right? It's called the CRD. So there's about 30 of them that make up the standard vanilla out of the box OpenShift platform. On top of that, then we have a whole heap of bits and pieces that can sit on that you might deploy. Okay, and OpenShift comes with its own catalog inside the product. Right? It's got its own operator catalog. Inside that operator catalog, there's about 500 operators. Most of the big vendors have their operators in there. Splunk's got its operator in there. JFrog's got its operator in there. Right? All the big vendors have their products that sit on top of Kubernetes available for you to deploy from within the operator console within your UI of the Kubernetes cluster you've deployed. Okay. As well as that, there's a lot of community operators, right? The stuff that's driven by the community around open source, things like external secrets. That's a community operator that sits in that in that operator catalog that I deploy all the time. You know, in the old days, we used to hard code our passwords and, you know, put the password in the documentation and, you know, all sorts of crazy things. Whereas these days, you know, you can have, certainly in the Amazon cloud, when we were building out open banking at Bendigo Bank, we had, we used secrets, Amazon secrets, AWS secrets manager, and we had auto rotating of those secrets so that you can kick off a lambda on top of them to rotate the secrets and then rotate that into the database. And then we would suck those secrets down with external secrets and auto rotate our pods. All right. So when the secret rotated the password, it rotated in the database, your application restarted and reconnected. Right. And that's an enterprise grade way of, you know, managing secrets. So there's community operators in there, but there is also community operators that have been extended by Red Hat, right? So Red Hat is fantastic at taking open source, hardening it, right, and making it enterprise grade. When I say enterprise grade, fundamentally I mean multi-tenanted is the thing that jumps out to me, right, when I'm talking about enterprise grade. And I talked about that previously around groups and users, right? That concept of being able to split out all my namespaces on my Kubernetes clusters so that my users are separating their access. They only see the things that they need to see. And they also only have access to the secrets they need to see, for example, right? And Red Hat's fantastic at getting that, all that single sign-on, the LDAP stuff baked into the these extended versions of things like Argo CD. We have a product called OpenShift GitOps that sits on top of, that can be deployed through the catalog, which is basically Argo CD, but it's Argo CD that's been extended. So when I deploy OpenShift GitOps on OpenShift, it's super simple for me. I remember when we built it on EKS, and we keep going back to that EKS versus OpenShift we talked about earlier. You know, I love Argo CD. How many people here use Argo CD? Yeah, it's number one for me. I can't think of another way to deploy applications. So we have OpenShift GitOps, and when I deploy OpenShift GitOps out of the operator catalog with OpenShift, it's there, hardened, single sign-ons all there. I just log into it, and it's able to be multi-tenanted. So all the group claims from my LDAP sync to OpenShift are pre-populated up into Argo CD, and I can assign user access there within Argo CD. Again, the previous places I've worked, when we use the community operator edition of that, you know, those are the sort of things you miss, right, with open source technology. You know, you've got a situation where, yes, it's free, you're using the open source version on Kubernetes, but everyone in my organization has read-only access to everyone else's stuff. Right? This is one of the big problems with community stuff, right? You know, they haven't got to a point where they've extended it to the full LDAP suite of authentication. So yeah, there's all sorts of things that sit on here. I've talked about a couple of them. Another one that's really cool is over here is the developer code ready workspaces and code ready containers. Right, it's all about standardizing your developer's experience. Right, they all their code would sit inside these containers, and they have an interface to these containers, and these containers pre-populate their development environment, all the tools they need. A big problem in organizations, big enterprise organizations, is having that standardized development platform. So rather than me just hacking away on my desktop or my laptop and building out my own development environment, which might be different to the guy sitting next to me, you know, this is all about having a standardized developer experience, right? I could talk all night about the stuff in there. There's 500 things in this catalog. So I'll keep going. On top, the final layer on stack, there's also stuff in that operator catalog that has an additional cost, and that layer at the top is additional cost. We have a product called ACM, which is about managing multiple clusters. Right? It's called Advanced Cluster Manager. And it doesn't just manage OpenShift clusters, it manages GKE and EKS and all types of different Kubernetes flavors. It's a really cool product. It's integrated with Argo CD. They're actually becoming closer and closer with the latest release of ACM. They do have some crossover there, but it is a cool tool, and they make good bedfellows. ACS, Advanced Cluster Security. It previously was a product called StackRox. It's number one in the marketplace of runtime security scanning and vulnerability scanning. Right? There's a report that came out last year that rated it number one. We purchased it at Red Hat, and we've continued it on and called it ACS. And there's also Red Hat Quay, I never know how to say it, which is our enterprise grade container registry. Right, I'm not going to talk much about that tonight. So that's an overview of OpenShift. That's what it is. Has anyone got any questions about OpenShift after seeing that slide, or does that make sense to everyone what OpenShift is? Yeah. Okay, I'll keep going. So tonight I don't have too long. So what I'm going to do next is actually do a ROSA install, and this slide talks a little bit about the different versions of OpenShift, and I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about this because it's important. So as I said earlier, we dominate the on-prem market, right? We've got 50% of it, right? When people were deploying in enterprise organizations, deploying OpenShift, we were the number one in early days, right? And we still dominate that market. It's a great product, and you can, like I said earlier, we can deploy it on bare metal, we can deploy it on virtual machines, right? So it's great for on-prem. What we haven't been amazing at is cracking the cloud, and we are catching up here. We're playing catch up. Like I said, EKS dominate, right? They have, like I said, I think they've made 2 billion out of it, right? They are miles ahead in the cloud game. So what has actually happened is Red Hat has joined up with the hyperscalers, and Google aside, so Google hasn't come to the party yet, but I'll talk about that in a second. What they did was they got together with Amazon, and they got together initially with Azure, and they made a joint product, right? So on Azure, it's called Arrow Red Hat OpenShift on Azure Red Hat OpenShift, right? And it was actually built by Microsoft, right? So largely, the Red Hat had a contributor as well, but it's basically an amalgamation of the things that we love in the hyperscaler combined with OpenShift, right? So you get that managed control plane, like you get with EKS and AKS and GKE, and you get that horizontal auto scaling, but it's actually OpenShift on top. And the one we're talking about tonight is ROSA. It's the AWS version of this. I love ROSA. I've got another slide that I'll go through. I'll do a bit more of a deep dive on that in a second. On the right here is Red Hat OpenShift dedicated. Now, Google and Red Hat have never gotten together and got this one over the line. So whilst we've got this joint party product in Azure and in AWS, we don't have that in Google. We do have this offering, Red Hat OpenShift dedicated, where you get the managed control plane where Red Hat look after it, but it's not a joint effort, right? It's still just Red Hat deploying OpenShift on Google's infrastructure, right, and managing the control plane for them. So it's a bit different there. I think Google has Anthos. Has anyone heard of that? Anthos. It's their what's that?
It's on my t-shirt, right?
Oh yeah, there you go. You got the jumper. The Anthos is their version of, we're going to put Kubernetes everywhere. And I think for them, marrying up Red Hat with a joint product like that wasn't really palatable for them, right? But who knows, in the future, maybe it will come. So I'll just skip through because I just want to show you this other side, which is about ROSA and what it means to me. So as I said before, I'm an EKS user, and I love the EKS. I thought it was a great product, even though it is basically bare bones Kubernetes. What I loved about it, you get with ROSA, right? And the three things that stick out for me are that managed control plane. Personally, I've managed control planes. Who's worked as a Kubernetes administrator and managed a control plane? So it can be precarious managing a control plane. It can be difficult. I certainly wouldn't want to be managing a control plane in 2023. I think the world moved on, right? And we've got robust managed platforms where you can have that control plane managed for you. And ROSA is certainly one of them. EKS is also one of them, right? And having that, I would always advocate for having a managed control plane. The other big thing is auto scaling, right? That's why we went to the cloud in the first place, right? Peak load, right? If I've got a Kubernetes cluster on-prem and I've got, you know, I don't know about your organizations you guys worked at, but even up until recently, even the major banks couldn't really spin off servers quickly, right? Some of them have gotten better at it in recent years. But I remember in 2017 at Lloyd's Bank, which is one of the pretty big bank, you know, we could only spin off a handful of VMs a day, right? That was only 6 years ago, right? I'm sure they've gotten a bit better at it since then, but hyperscalers, they can spin off these VMs at rapid fire, right? My Kubernetes cluster, if I've got it at 3 nodes, and we used to do this, we used to run our Kubernetes clusters for managing our CI/CD workflows at Bendigo Bank. During the day or during the evening, it's a 1 node cluster. Right? At peak in the middle of the day, it's a 30 node cluster. Right? So I'm only paying for those 30 nodes in the middle of the day, and then the rest of the time I'm not paying for them. Right? This is one of the primary reasons we moved to the cloud. So you get that with ROSA, you get that with EKS as well, right? And finally, which is SCS, which we talked about earlier. If you know what IAM is, all SCS is a web identity role, and it means that you can use fine-grained access roles from within your Kubernetes clusters using OIDC to resources in the cloud, right? And I talked about that with external secrets. I can lock down this pod to talk to that secret in the cloud, right? And for me, it's fantastic what Amazon did with SCS. There is no equivalent of that in Azure, right? I think they are working on something. It's wonderful. And then you marry that up with the power of OpenShift. Right? And I've just talked about all the things that OpenShift has. For me, having built out EKS platforms, having guardrails around how you do things is another reason I like the cloud. Right? I like guardrails. Right? I don't want a free-for-all. EKS is fantastic. I do think it's fantastic, but I know at the bank I was at, they're starting to have problems with when you expand with a platform that you build yourself, right? It's like anything, right? It's like any piece of software. If you're managing that piece of software yourself, as you expand and it moves forward over time, it can be hard to maintain, and the operational overhead of managing a Kubernetes cluster that you built yourself. So if you built out Argo CD, or if you built Istio service mesh on top, managing the upgrades of those Helm charts or operate, it can become quite laborious. And as Kelsey Hightower once said, I went and saw Kelsey Hightower. Who knows who Kelsey Hightower is? So he's like a bit of a Kubernetes guru. I saw him talk at Google once. And it's one thing he said to me that always stuck with me was your wage bill dwarfs your infrastructure costs. And that is true at any organization, right? So if you're spending a little bit more on your infrastructure, if it saves you 6 months in a human resource, you know, it's paid for itself, right? How am I doing for time? This slide is just about, the back end of ROSA, which is, it's a joint offering with Red Hat and Amazon staff support it jointly. It's in the Amazon marketplace, so you get a single bill, right? You can use your committed spend to purchase ROSA. But I'm going to move away from the slides now. Does everyone have a good feel of what ROSA is now? Yeah, it's just a joint offering in the cloud that is a managed OpenShift version, right? With all the benefits of why we went to the cloud. So I'm just going to talk about the cloud console. So with ROSA, we basically have our own portal that we can provision the ROSA cluster through. It sits outside. If you're familiar with the Amazon portal, it's a web interface here. I personally have literally never spun up a cluster this way. I always use the command line or Terraform. But I'm going to walk through this because it is cool, and it just shows you how easy it can be to spin off a ROSA cluster, right? if you're ever going to have a play with this. So there are some prerequisites to get this going. You need to associate an Amazon account with the ROSA cluster. I've already associated my account, and there are some prerequisites around some roles you need to create within your AWS account. Okay, there's some IAM roles that you need to create. If you ever going through this, it's all listed in the prerequisites inside the documentation. There's a couple of roles here. They just you can just run them through the command line. Create ICM roles, create user roles, and there's another one called account roles. Okay, it's just 3 commands that you need to run. Basically, you're telling the AWS account that this third party can talk to you, right, within your Amazon account. Now, this UI interface I'm talking about today it's not just about deploying the clusters. If I deployed my cluster with Terraform, and I'll actually go back here for a second. If I just look at clusters, I've already deployed one with Terraform. That's my name /ROSA. So when you deploy the clusters, they also appear in here, and some of your day 2 activities have to occur in here because it's like remember I talked about guardrails. It's a managed platform, right? So the SRE team at the back have more control over the platform than you get on EKS. EKS, like I said, is a bit of a free-for-all, right? Whereas this is quite controlled. And some of the day 2 activities, such as setting up LDAP or managing worker node groups, is done through this console. Okay, so it's not full IAC, which part of me, it pains me a little bit in some ways, but I sort of understand why they do it this way, right? Because they want to have control and supportability. One of the big pluses about ROSA is that everyone's ROSA in the world is identical, pretty much, right? Apart from what they put on top of it. And that is one of the big goals of Red Hat and producing a platform like ROSA, right? Having a standard offering means that it's, and also having automatic upgrades. So all these clusters have an option to auto upgrade themselves, right? And certainly the components that sit on top of it, all the operators also have an option to auto upgrade. And having everyone keeping up to date and upgrading and having this managed platform with guardrails makes supportability a lot easier, right? It's a lot easier for Red Hat to support the clusters. And it just means that everyone's going through the same thing at the same time, right? So it makes it a lot easier. So I'm just going to run through this create cluster, okay? So you can create a cluster through here, through the web interface. Once you've created those roles, you just, you can choose this down here and you'll click next. This console will actually also create the networking for you, okay? You can choose multi-zone, single zone. You can enable the Prometheus monitoring. You can actually set KMS keys down here. You know, you can accept the default, or you can bring your own KMS key. You get to select the machine pool types, the node type, your worker node types, how many worker nodes you're going to provision. The type of cluster it's going to be. You can have a public facing cluster, right? So you can provision a cluster and it will automatically have a customer facing certificate and ingress point, right? That you can connect to, or you can create a private Kubernetes cluster. You would create a private Kubernetes cluster in pretty much every organization that's of a medium to large size, right? Most organizations are going to spin off a private cluster and put it behind a WAF or, you know, some other security devices that before it's exposed to the internet. Right. Oh yeah, and you can either in this GUI you can bring your own VPC, or you can accept the VPC that will provision for you. Next, you can select the defaults for the subnets it needs. Like I say, in a public one, you're going to have a mixture of public and private subnets from the VPC. Accepting the defaults largely is fine. The networking in OpenShift is like a VLAN. It's like a VLAN overlay, if you're familiar with that. So, you know, whilst you don't have a subnet for your worker node group, so all your worker nodes will sit on this subnet that's a real subnet within the VPC within Amazon. Then you have this separate network that sits across the worker nodes, and it's called an overlay, right? So you can define that subnet to be as quite sizable to accommodate all the pods that you will have, and they don't affect the actual size of the subnet for your worker nodes, right? I think the ROSA has got a limit of 100 worker nodes or something, so you're never going to really run out of IP addresses in the subnet you provision for for the cluster. I've always just accept these create the OIDC and the additional roles that it creates. Obviously, the cluster itself interacts with the Amazon cloud, so it needs some additional roles that it will create. So I always just accept the defaults there. And then we talked about this earlier, the update strategy. So in this console, you can also schedule in your maintenance window for your cluster, right? When am I going to be happy for this auto upgrade to occur? Or you can select manual upgrades, right? And that's pretty much it, right? That's how easy it is to spin off a cluster. And like I said, you didn't even have to provision the network, right? It will do that for you. All right. I'm not going to do it this way today. I'm going to flick over and show you a couple other ways to deploy it now. And then I'll wrap up and hand back to Yong. How am I doing for time, mate?
I think it should be all right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm going to talk about IAC now. So, like I said, I mean, with the we talked about operator catalog before. One of the great things in OpenShift is that operator catalog, and it is UI driven. I've actually got it here. I'll just show you it quickly. So this is ROSA, right? We're looking at a ROSA cluster now. And this is the UI that you get with ROSA. And one of my favorite things is there's two personas really. There's a developer and an administrator. Generally with Kubernetes, I'm sure most people that use it would agree. From an administrator point of view, generally you use the command line. It's quite powerful, and once you get used to it, it's a really quick way of managing it, managing the administrative components of your Kubernetes cluster. But from an actual building out of the platform, when you're talking about, installing all the bits and pieces that you need on top of the base OpenShift deployment, I use this operator catalog heavily just to get going at the start. I found it absolutely fantastic for that. Right, I can come in here, deploy Argo CD, and I deploy, all the bits and pieces that I need, service mesh, etc. through here, and then I go and look at the YAML that's created, and then I wrap that in Helm charts, and then I GitOps it next time I do it. Right, I always GitOps everything, and I always Terraform everything. I always use IAC. But from the first time you do it, using the operator catalog to develop your platform, very quick. I think it would save you months compared to building out a proper enterprise grade Kubernetes platform on GKE or EKS. I honestly believe that. So, like I say, everything should be in GitOps and IAC, right? That should be a fundamental rule for everyone. But in that initial development phase, maybe you do it through the GUI, right? Before you get it to the point where you can wrap it in a Helm chart or whatever. And the same goes for cluster deployment. All right. The first time I deployed a ROSA cluster, I deployed it with a command line, or some people probably use that UI we were just looking at. But then that point afterwards, I'm thinking about IAC and how I can do it with IAC, right? One thing with ROSA is they haven't actually released the proper Terraform module for ROSA yet. It's a work in progress. I don't use it currently. This is the provider here. It's the OCM. It actually integrates with the API that sits behind that UI that we were looking at before. Right? It's at version 0.0.1, and I think they're going to move it to 1.0. That's when they're finished working on it. I did dabble with it at one stage, and I got a bit stuck, and it was because the documentation wasn't quite right. But it hasn't gone public release yet, so I'm holding off on using it at the moment. What I'm going to show you quickly is a generic Terraform module that I use. It's written by some guy, and I did contact him because I just loved his the thing he created. His name was Scott Winkler, and he called it Scott Winkler Shell. And basically, it allows you to template, or it's basically like if anyone's used exec in Terraform, it allows you to not only create a shell script that you can run with Terraform, it also allows you to tell it how you're going to remove the resource when you do a Terraform destroy, which is a big improvement on just running exec in Terraform. Right? Exec in Terraform only allows you to create, and you run into problems when you go to delete. All right, and this is a cool little module, and if anyone wants this code afterwards, I'll give it to you. You can install anything with this, right? As long as you know how to remove it. You see here in the delete template, I've got the ROSA commands to delete the cluster. All right, I'm going to pass in the variables that it needs to remove the cluster. But on the create side, this is the actual command, and all these things that you see here are all the things that we inputted in to the UI in that previous little session I went through. I've also using the standard networking modules that Amazon release. You know, I've just downloaded that. I try to create. I mean, I was in banking up until last year, and I still try and create all my pipelines as if I was working on a customer site. So this Terraform module, I actually use a state bucket and my lock file in my DynamoDB table, and I also try and set the actual pipeline activities up so that it could be used in the real world. If anyone wants a copy of this, please let me know. So up here, I've got, when I personally used to use GitLab as GitLab action, GitLab pipelines. Here I'm using GitHub pipelines. And what I've done is I've extracted away the variables that I need to supply for each Kubernetes cluster down to this simple little JSON file, right? So this is the one we saw before that I created, Foster ROSA, and I've created a Foster ROSA 2 underneath it that I'm going to spin off now before I hand back to Yong. One thing I don't like about GitHub Actions is it's a lot easier to inherent pipeline stuff within GitLab, I find. Here I've got quite a lot of repeated code. I know you can consolidate it and include it, but it's just a little bit more complicated. So it's a bit, but I don't love this pipeline, to be honest. It's a bit of repetition in here, which I don't like. But any pipeline is better than no pipeline, right? So what I'll do is I will just go through and kick this off. So my actual pipeline is here. What I might do is I might hand back to Yong, and I'll just kick this off in the background. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Like for ingress.
Yep.
Right, in OpenShift we having HA proxy.
Correct. Yep.
Which used to get deployed.
Yep.
And if you're doing on-prem, we always go back to load balancer team and we say that, okay, these are my infra nodes as a backend, and we deploy it, and
Yep.
it will come to ingress. And you can do route sharding and other stuff to
Yep.
get it more. But now you're doing ROSA on AWS, right?
Yep.
So now I want ingress. So
Yep.
if you go with EKS, there is a load balancer controller which can be installed on the
Correct.
cluster, so that as when you create the ingress resource, it will automatically create the load balancer for you.
Correct.
And you can able to have multiple different backends, even though you can have a pod as a backend to a load balancer.
Yep.
That is network endpoints, right?
Yep.
So you want to do the same thing on ROSA, how you do that?
So you can deploy a secondary ingress. There's an operator for it. They don't support all the annotations. They do support NLBs now. So yes, it is a little bit behind. They are moving to AWS load balance controller. So
As of today, if someone want to use ROSA on AWS, someone have to again you deploy HA proxy.
Yep.
And you will have a dedicated node pool for your infra nodes.
Yep.
And you will go, and when you create a load balancer, you will manually add those
No, so it's all automatic. It's still all
automatic. I'm not saying that it's manual. I'm saying that it's not been taken care of as a part of a controller or within your cluster. It is external stuff which need to be taken care for load balancer provisioning and adding your infra node to the backend to the load balancer.
It's no different to EKS, right? It's all done with the annotations in the service.
Yeah, so it will work in the same way.
Same way. All underneath ROSA is all the STS and all the same.
STS is for
Yeah,
IAM.
Yeah, that's right. But the same with the annotations in the service. It's
But
all the
you-
same, but they don't support all the annotations at today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they do support that load balancer type only recently to NLB.
NLP
Okay.
only.
Yeah, and classic. The classic is by
Application
default.
load balance is not supported. as of
Application
today.
load balancer. I don't know if it's there yet. Yeah. But that's classic, isn't it? I think it's classic's default.
Classic, you have to migrate actually.
I thought that I saw a link someone was saying you can, it's come, maybe it's coming, just starting, yeah.
If you do classic, as when you do the provisioning, it will send you to migrate. That's
Oh, yeah. Wow, I don't know, I mean, classics, but I don't think they're gonna
so
get rid of
that's how it
classic.
is, if nowadays, I recently have some experience where if I deploy classic, just because I was getting some error, it's telling me to migrate to the EL.
Is it? Right, there you go.
Already AWS can scale load balancer much more efficiently than some of the on-prem solutions with HA proxy. It's using the AWS load balancer.
See, I never installed ROSA, that's why I thought to ask you.
No, it's a very good
How-
question.
Quite different,
It's a very good question, and ingress is the #1 topic, right? When you're, especially in a big enterprise organization.
So ingress and is something what everyone is interested because you
Yeah.
can deploy the cluster maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But if you're not able to get your cluster, your traffic inside cluster and how you do your your certificate management, if you want someone want MTLS end to end.
Yep.
So those things something what if
I would say the cloud experience in that case is much better for you.
Yes,
yeah.
Even
so
if
much
it's
better.
on
Yep, yep.
AWS in the
Yeah.
first place, but it's much better than with the on-prem with the extra things that you.
I
can
agree with
do.
you.
Yeah.
And those integrations are there already and quite smooth. Doesn't
Yep.
matter if on AWS, Azure or GCP, those are much smoother using the services on the.
Yeah, they are all native, they build with cloud
Yeah,
native only.
yeah,
and,
and mostly they're built by this as well.
Yep.
It's giving the plugin from Azure,
Because you put in ROSA on top of that and which is not native to them, of course, you make it more native, where it's under still from Red Hat.
Yeah.
It's always, you guys have to work with them to get. those
Well, keep in mind, a
integrations,
lot of
like
this
you-
stuff's open
Just like you
source.
got the STS, because.
That's
it was
right.
Not there, last year you got it, last year you started STS for ROSA.
Yes, well, yeah.
And now, last year only you.
That's
but
right.
in Same time.
But SCS is, keep in mind, SCS is open source, right? This is
It's
just
open
an, it's
source,
just an
but in
open
the end
source.
of day-
Same with load balancer controller, right?
Yeah, in the end of the day, getting it as a part of your offering, that's what my, like, but that's like I want to understand that.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
support that, right?
Yeah, yep, 100%. I mean, when you use SCS, it's actually EKS annotations still on ROSA, right?
I never used ROSA as. so I don't know.
Okay, so they actually are EKS annotations, but that's cool because they're making it supportable, right? It's the same product that's on all of these things, right?
Yeah, and then if I can able to assume a role the way I do in EKS, so it's giving a
Same,
it's giving me same experience.
Same experience, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and what about the cost model actually? Maybe is the right question to ask. Like
Yeah, look,
because
I mean-
but, maybe if you have your agenda, that we can ignore that question.
I think let's make it short. Do you want to answer the question? Yeah, the
Well,
cost thing.
oh,
Yeah,
you know what, I was
make
gonna
it shorter.
You
Yeah.
know, I completely forgot to show you hypershifts. I completely forgot. Maybe we'll do it at the end. But
Okay.
basically, the cost is a little bit more because you have to spin up the control plane at the moment. But like I said, once we move to this new operating model with a host of control planes, we will just pay on demand for the control
Even
plane.
though EKS
then-
also take the control plane charge, I think.
It's just
but
on demand, though, isn't it?
It's like very small.
Yeah, it's
dots,
10
like
cents.
10
Yeah.
cent or something.
So I imagine we will move to the same model.
But you guys will, so you're not going to charge for the license, like.
So there'll still be a little, it will always be a little bit more,
It's
right?
little more or it's like what, like it's bigger.
I think it's a little bit more. Do you know what it is? I don't know. I mean,
I don't.
I don't think
So definitely.
it's-
I think it's pretty simple. You pay for the price, you pay for the benefits.
But to try to understand, that's why, see, that's we started discussion.
Yeah.
that Why someone will use
Mhm.
ROSA on top of EKS. So
Mhm.
that's good because then
Yeah.
when I talk with the leadership point of view, they always, because if I can't able to take a new product just to having Argo CD, I can install Argo CD myself also, right?
Yes, but
So,
can you sort out the RBAC?
so I
Can you
can
sort
put
out the
an
RBAC,
RBAC, right? For my own knowledge, I'm asking actually, so that it's easy if we know those answers, so we can able to talk the same language what experts from Red Hat say.
Mm.
I can
Yeah, look,
always
they're all
call-
valid questions, mate. And look, like I said, like at the moment, it does come across a little bit more pricey, but relative to on-prem, it's actually a lot cheaper, right?
Okay.
So OpenShift ROSA in the cloud as opposed to on-prem.
So
it's cheaper.
basically, the selling point is that you will get same experience what you're getting on-prem with Red Hat OpenShift on AWS. So go with the ROSA, because if you adopt anything else, it will always come with new learnings for your team as well. as-
The multi-cloud, the hybrid cloud story is very powerful. Yeah, so the consistent platform.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, for me, it's the power of OpenShift and the power of the cloud, right? All those benefits of it, the hyper scale, the auto scaling, the SCS, and the managed control plane, and then you marry that up with the power of OpenShift. Yeah, that's how I think about it. For me, all that matters is does it save you human hours? And I think it does.
So the power of OpenShift always more focused on the advanced stuff you give with the control plane, because everything is operator based, which give a big overhead against other like the Kubernetes providers, because you can able to install anything just from a click of button as an operator.
Yeah.
Which is not there with EKS,
Correct.
PKE. So that is the power you are referring to.
One of the powers, yeah. So the speed at which you can build out the platform, also the automatic upgrades, right? So you put Argo CD on, right? You have to go and let's say you've got 50 clusters, right? You have to go around and upgrade Argo CD on every cluster that you've got it on.
Yeah,
Okay.
so see,
As a-
upgrade of that specific Argo CD you're talking about? Or
So
the
Argo CD,
cluster?
so the operators you can select auto upgrade for
Yeah,
them.
so operator is the key power which Red Hat provide, which come from.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
You guys don't want to spend the whole night here, right? I know it's a very good conversation around these. Yeah. Let's keep it going. I know you have a question. Can we leave it till later? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for that. Yeah, we're getting late. So I'm also very excited. You already deployed your day one, you deployed ROSA or any other Kubernetes cluster. But have you guys thought about you need a specialized tool for the backup? Anybody is using any tool for the backup? So which tool you are using?
There's the testing and
Yeah, casting, yeah.
I haven't tried the one, but I'm more familiar with the interface of backup.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else?
Backup of what?
Backup of the containers. So people think we don't,
Stateful
people
container?
think, yeah, stateful. Yeah.
So basically your old company VM, they used to do VM, right? VM, how you pronounce it? VW.
Veeam.
VM. Yeah.
Okay. So I give you some idea. So the whole market. So when you guys deploy the containers, initially nobody think about the backup because it's ephemeral containers. It's a stateless application. So when it's gone, you just spin up new containers. Who cares if it's gone? But the moment people deploy more and more applications database inside of the containers. So why are people doing that way? When you deploy application or running from the containers, your web application, your middle tier, what about your database? If you're still using your database RDS, for example, or maybe somewhere else, the delay, the latency is a problem. And not to mention the cost is another problem. So the whole market is shifting. People deploy more and more stateful application to the containers. That becomes very important. We need to specialize the tool for the backup. So the traditional tool like all the legacy guys, Veritas, Convo, IBM, he talked about the TSM, right? There are a lot of the different tools, but these guys are not specializing on the containers. So when you talk about the containers backup, there is a #1 free open source tool. I don't know if anybody heard. It's called Valero. if you look at the backup, when customer deploy the containers, definitely people will think about it's a free open source, why not? But then when you deploy, they will realize, why it's hard to manage. There is no enterprise support, and there is no built-in encryption, no built-in multi-class management. That's why there are a lot of the new companies was born. So one of the is a team.
I think Custom.
Yeah, Custom. Yeah, Custom by Veeam was acquired by Veeam. So the guys specialize on the container backup. So they sold to Veeam. I think it's $160 million. There is another guy, Port Warrix, also sold to Pure Storage. So I believe they paid for $250 million. So these guys are specialized on the Kubernetes, backup. Actually, my last job, I worked for Custom. But now when I was doing the Kubernetes backup, I was working with all different customers. There is a new tool pop up. It's called CloudCasa. I do testing all different tools, just like I tested all different Kubernetes. And this is a very good one. So the reason is why customer use the managed OpenShift or manage the Kubernetes. They want to simplify their life. They don't want to manage how to set up, how to do the upgrade maintenance. That's where CloudCasa, they specialize in say, you love the Kubernetes, managed Kubernetes. Why not love the managed Kubernetes backup? So that's where CloudCasa is here. So I will talk about how to enable the container backups on ROSA, especially since Paul already spin up a ROSA cluster. Let's use their cluster. I will show you how to enable the backups. And any questions, feel free to ask, okay? If you don't have a OpenShift cluster, I love multi-cloud, I love OpenShift, so I got 3 different videos, basically to cover 3 different cloud, how to spin up a ROSA cluster. It is actually my #1 most watched video. So ROSA is very popular. And then I got the ARO, that's Azure Red Hat OpenShift. And also ROX, that's a Red Hat OpenShift on Red Hat OpenShift Kubernetes service on IBM Cloud. And once you have a Kubernetes cluster, OpenShift cluster running, it's really just 3 steps. You can enable the backup. So #1, if you don't have an account, you can sign up a trial account. And then step 1, you register the cluster from the cloud. And then you create a policy, you define the backup. That's simple. How to do it? I'm going to show you, give you a live demo to show you how it works. So I don't want to talk too much. Let me jump to my web console here. So let me start from the beginning. So if you don't have an account, so you see the Valor icon here.
Yeah, it's not reflecting on the screen.
Oh, sorry. And let me move it here. Sorry for that. Okay. So if you go to cloudcasa.io, it will take you to this screen. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Yeah. Sign up a trial account is as easy. Just click try now. And they will ask you your email address. You're given a password, your first name, last name. There is absolutely no payment details asked. You just click sign up, and then shortly you will receive the email. And after you click a verification, you can log into the web console basically. This is a very easy, simple to use web console. Where did I click? So the dashboard. So when you log into the web console, you can see the easy, nice UI. You can see exactly what's happening, how many clusters I have, what are the cloud providers. So sometimes most people might be confused. Listed here, you got a Google Cloud, you got Azure Cloud, you got AWS. What about the other Kubernetes? I might running vanilla Kubernetes or maybe run OpenShift. So all of these are supported. The reason they listed the 3 major cloud here is there are some advanced features, functionalities. So I will talk about it shortly. So the first one, we log in here. Let's register ROSA cluster. So all you need to do is under configurations, you do the, actually, do I have a cluster? No, I haven't. You click add a cluster. let's say I call the cluster ROSA for Yongkang and click register. So that's a step one. I register the cluster and how to connect to my ROSA cluster. So once you click register, it will give you a command. And then from the terminal, I copy this command. Where is my terminal? Actually, give me 1 second. Let me find out where is my terminal. Yeah, too many windows.
It does have a lot of windows.
I went lost. Where?
That's it.
I was using VS Code. I guess you guys are also using VS Code, right? It's over here. Oh, come on. Where is my mouse? I can't get back.
How many people are using dev containers in VS Code?
Well, I use the attach to container thing. That's nice.
Okay, finally, I got my VS Code here. Oh, it wasn't there. Ah, here we go. Let me make it bigger. Otherwise, it's hard to see. Is that big enough? Okay. So the first thing is let me verify my ROSA cluster nodes. I'm going to run this command. So basically, it will say how many nodes you have. So I believe I got nine nodes, right? Anyway, and I can verify what's my applications. So let's say I'm going to verify the namespace. I do have a namespace. It is actively running here. And what we can do is we're going to use this one as a sample database. We're going to configure the backup. So first of all, we register the cluster. I already copied the command. All we need to do is, let me see if I already have it installed. So if I do OC get namespace, CloudCasa, yes, it wasn't installed. So I'm going to, oh no, not this command. I'm going to copy the command again. And then I'm going to come back here. So basically, this is a terminal. I can access my ROSA cluster. I paste the command here, and then we're going to deploy a lightweight agent to the cluster. So once we deploy the cluster agent to the cluster, you can verify the deployment. So I'm going to run this command. So you can monitor the ports. So from our CloudCasa-IO, the namespace, we're going to deploy the Kube agent manager, and then the Kube manager will launch a Kube agent. That's the actual lightweight agent deployed to the ROSA cluster. It will allow me to talk to ROSA cluster from our CloudCasa web console. So if I come back to the CloudCasa web console, you can see installation successful. And I can go ahead, click close. You can see my cluster is active. I can save it now. Now I do have a ROSA cluster here, but I also have other cluster EKS. But as I say, literally any Kubernetes cluster supported. But for the three major cloud, we do have some advanced functionalities. So once it shows here, the version 1.23, it is active. So the next step is we can define a policy. Let's say I'm going to define a policy. The policy is more about how often you want to do the backup, how long you want to keep. So I give you an example. Let's say I want to create the policy. I click add a policy, and you can give a name and how often you want to do the backup, maybe every hour, or maybe you want to do every day, every week, for example, and then you can click add a schedule, and then you can create the policy. So that's the policy configuration. I'm going to cancel that. I already have 2 policy configured. So the next step is we're going to define what do you want to back up. So this is containers. So we are talking about application granularity. You don't have to back up the whole cluster. Do you want to back up the whole cluster? Useless. because all you care is just your application. The whole cluster is gone. I can spin up a new cluster. I can use Terraform or Infra as code, any other tool. I can spin up a new cluster very quickly. What we really care is the application. If my application is gone, the data is gone, that's crazy. Cluster is gone, doesn't matter. I can spin up a new one. Okay, so how to define the backup? From here, if I click define backup, what do you want to back up? So I give a name, say I got the application, it's called ROSA PostgreSQL. I'm going to do snap. I'm going to do the copy. I will explain shortly. The snapshot, it's do a snapshot from your cluster. It's sitting in your cluster. What if my whole cluster is gone? Or the whole data center is gone? You can't restore. So by doing the copy, we can make another copy to the object storage. The object storage can be far away from a different region. Maybe your cluster is here. We can use the semi region for the object storage, S3, Azure Blob Store, or GCS, etc. In doing that way, it will be more reliable and also it's more resilient. Okay. So once you define this, which cluster you're going to back them up? So when you add a more cluster, so this is what I mentioned earlier, multi-cluster management. You might have dozens or hundreds of a cluster. It will be all listed here. And I choose the cluster, click next. What do you want to back up? Do I really need to back up the whole cluster? No, I just need to back up my application. So in this case, I just back up my application. Let's say, where is my application? You can use the search. Let's say I just want to back up a Louis-PostgreSQL application. Do I want to include the persistent volumes? If you're running state of application, definitely you need to back up the persistent volume. And do you want to just do snapshot only? I mentioned earlier, it's not a good idea because the cluster is gone, your snapshot also gone, you can't recover. So I always recommend customer to do the snapshot and copy. And also, I don't like the idea to delete the snapshot immediately. The reason is when you want to restore, you always need to restore from object storage, which is slower. By keeping a copy local, you can get the fast recovery. So I'm going to unselect this one. And there are some advanced options. Let's talk about later. Click next. So which policy you want to attach to? I got a 2 policy here. I can use any one of the policy. Let's say the policy for Louisa here, and then click next and create the policy. That's how we register the cluster, define a policy, define the backup. Any question? Yeah, go ahead.
What's the source of the destinations here? I'm like, where are you backing to?
That's a very good question. So when you use some other tool, because it doesn't come to the storage, you need to define the object storage first.
Yeah.
Whatever, any region or even on premises, the object storage, you need to define the storage first. So CloudCasa, it's a managed Kubernetes backup. It comes with the managed storage. But having said that, they also give you the option to customize, choose, bring your own storage. For example, like an ANZ Bank, you don't want to use the cloud object storage, or you want to use the selected region. So they give you the option. You can customize. I want to use AWS region in Sydney. Because of my cluster is running here, I want to make it more safe, more reliable.
My own account or in their account?
You can use your account, or you can choose to use the CloudCasa account.
That's the important point. If it's their service, then it's like
Yeah. I think that the beauty is it comes with the object storage, managed storage. But if you choose not to use their own, for example, in the size, I want to use my own account. I want to have the full control. It's doable. I'm going to show you shortly where it is. But before that, instead of waiting for next scheduled job, which is running schedule every hour, I can run the job immediately. Okay. Once you click run now, it's an on-demand backup job. You give the option, I just want to keep 7 days, for example. Click run, and the job will kick off. Shortly, it will appear here. Now, let me show you where to define the storage. So under the configurations, there is a storage options. So like Inda said, I don't want to use your account. It's out of my control, right? So in this case, I do allow you add storage. You can choose your own storage. You give a name and which cloud provider you want to use. You can use AWS or S3 compatible does cover every object storage. Otherwise, you can choose Azure. Okay. But if you are using Alibaba or for example, or maybe Google, you choose AWS S3, also doable. Yeah, you just put the detailed credentials, your bucket name, your secret key, your endpoint. Even you're using your own premises.
So information will get stored on CloudCasa website, like their own control plane. Where
So the control plane is managed by CloudCasa.
basically this all information will go with them, right? Like my access key and all, they will be stored in their own, like it's not gets stored as a secret or something because you install an agent, right?
My understanding is stored in your cluster. It's in your cluster as a secret. It's not stored by from their cloud.
Okay, it's not go to their control.
No, it's in your cluster.
In my cluster.
Yes. So that's how you can leverage, basically bring your own storage. Okay. Let me come back to the dashboard. You can see.
And where data will, because the data have to go like how like the because data in transit, right? How it will be get encrypted.
By default, it's built-in encrypted. Yes. Yeah, it's very important. Yeah. And so right now you can see my job actually completed successfully. And we do give you the more visibility and also more insights. You can download the logs from the UI as well. And you can see the duration, 1.5 minutes. And you can actually see the activity, the details, give you more insights. So think about it, if you are using the Valero, it's an open source tool, a very powerful engine, everybody using it, but you don't have the visibility. So next week, actually, the company will release a new version. So they see the customer using Valero. There is no UI, no visibility, no monitoring. So they are going to provide us something called CloudCasa for Valero. So they see there is an opportunity. They just build the UI for your existing Valero deployment.
Oh, as when you log in on the front page, it's mentioned same thing.
Correct. Yeah, that's why from the CloudCasa web console, you can see the Valero icon. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my next question. So the backend to this isn't Valero.
Okay.
That's very painful.
That's a very good question. If you look at the whole market, people are doing the Kubernetes backup. Almost everybody using Valero.
They are using same thing.
They are also using Valero. Okay. But the thing is
Already done Valero in the UK, right? I mean, what's the next thing? I'm sorry, I'm trying to map what you just said. There's another UI in front of Valero. My assumption was this is what it is.
Yeah, that's good. But not everybody want to use CloudCasa here. Okay. Customers are using Valero today. It's already using. So even though all the traditional legacy backup vendors, they are also using Valero. It's a very powerful engine. But after you deploy it, you realize how to manage it. It's a complete command line driven. There is a lack of the visibility, lack of the reporting monitoring, how to do the restore. It's just a command. You run all the restore list here. So the feature which CloudCasa built here is you don't have to change anything from your Valero deployment. Okay, we discover all of your backup. We give you the UI to do the restore. Even you want to move, say, I'm running on EKS, I want to move to ROSA. From the UI, I can do the migration. But you don't have to do the migration, say, from a Valero, I want to migrate to CloudCasa. No, there is no change to your existing deployment. Just the agent, we will discover all of your existing Valero, your configuration, your backup storage location, your schedule. It will be all displayed here.
That's a good thing, actually.
It is. I love the idea.
Good idea.
Yeah. If anyone want to try, yeah, feel free to give it a try. It's definitely, if you want to do the container backup, definitely you go Valero. But once you go there, you realize, oh, how to manage it. It's hard. So that's why the CloudCasa built the feature functionality here. So all of these you're seeing here. So for example, I can see what my PV details here, and my persistent volume, all the details are listed here. And when
You download a copy of the backup, back it up.
you back up what? You want to back up what? What do you want to back up?
Well, so it just made a backup. Like, what is it? Can I see it?
Can you say?
Is can you get it as a file?
It is actually saved to the object storage. If you log into your Amazon S3 or Azure Blob Storage,
See it there.
you can see that. Yeah, you actually can see it. Okay, so while we're talking, only 1.5 minutes, we already back them up. So now I'm going to show you. Anyone care about the restore? So the backup is for restore. If you can't do the restore, why I do the backup?
Backup is only for peace of mind.
So
It's really a disaster now.
I worked at an enterprise that had a tape drive in an old Windows server that they backed up to.
yeah.
And I discovered when we needed to restore that at some point they'd run off the end of the tape. So it wasn't full backup. So yeah, you don't test your restore. What's the point of the backup?
Yeah.
I love it,
Okay.
by the way.
So once we have the backup here, you can see easily my last 3 running job. I already completed 1 backup. It says completed. And next here, you do have the restore button here. So that's how we can make it easier. So let's say if I want to do the restore, you just click restore. So I mentioned, did I mention earlier? I do have 2 copies. I choose to keep 2 copies. I don't want to delete the local snapshot because I want to fast recover. But what if the local copy is gone? You do have another option. You can choose to restore from object storage. So I can choose any one of these since I have 2 copies. I just choose the one from object storage. You can see the size, only 37 megabytes. My PVC size is 1 gigabyte. Because of the deduplication, compression, all these are built in. Yeah, I choose this one. The next step.
That is size, and this is the actual data size. 1 GB is the PV size.
PV size, yes.
That is the data size.
The actual stored to the backup.
Data size.
Yes.
Because can't take the empty. There's no reason of taking.
Yeah.
backup
Then
empty thing.
correct. So when you do the restore, it will say, what do you want to restore? You can select your namespace or application, and then next, oh, this is something I want to highlight. Sometimes somebody just deleted the secrets, configure maps or service account. Any one of the objects resources is missing, it will cause some problems. But my whole cluster is still intact. So why I need to do the whole restore? It takes a long time. It could be you have a large environment.
But it will exclude those examples. I'm not sure what is deleted. So I will select this option. It will check what is available, skip that, is deleted, it will restore it. Or it will restore everything.
Yeah, you do have the option. Do you want to choose your existing one? You don't want to override, or you want to override?
Override or it will skip it.
Yes.
It will skip it or
No.
it will
If
override?
you choose override, it will override. If you don't choose that one, it will say, oh, it's already there. I'm not going to restore that. Yeah. So if you choose the option resource type, it gives you all the options. Sorry, you probably want to be able to see configure maps, secrets, ports, all these resources are discovered. You do have the granularity to do the recover. And for now, let me just show you. I'm not going to show restore individual resource. Let's say this is a very powerful feature. This is not something any other guys can do. On the fly, I can create a new cluster. So let's say I want to create a DR. But if you keep your DR cluster keeps running 24/7, obviously, all the cloud guys will charge you, keeps charging you. But your DR says, I only, the moment my production is gone, spin up my DR cluster. So this is very powerful. When your DR happens, I spin up a new cluster for you. You don't need your infra team to create the cluster. Once you create the cluster, you still need to manage the restore. This is fully automated. Spin up the new cluster, deploy the agent, do the restore for you. Everything is ready for your
And
application.
When you say if you create new cluster,
Mhm.
which because okay, like what it will take as a because we have to define the pod CIDR, service CIDR, node CIDR. Is it will take the same CIDR, so it will take new CIDRs?
It give you the option. Let's say, but right now they only support the 3 major cloud. So when you want to spin up a new cluster, you add the cloud account. Right now, I only have the AWS cloud account added. So I want to be able to choose AKS or GK. Once you add the cloud account, basically it will talk to your cloud. That's where you can spin up a new cluster. So like a EKS CTO, you can create the EKS cluster or via the API. So basically it's an API integration. Once you choose that option, it will give you some more details. You can control which VPC you're going to use, which subnets, so all these configurations will be here.
So you go to next option, EKS option.
Yeah, see if you go to the next step,
Where's the ROSA?
so you can give it the class name, things like that. He's not happy over that. Anyway, so I just quickly to show you from the EKS option, you do have the option choosing different network settings in a cloud, a cluster add-on, and the node pool settings. You might want to choose a different instance size also doable. Okay, so let me go back. So for now, let me choose to do the basic stuff. I want to just restore to my original cluster. Okay, I choose my existing cluster. I'm going to do the next, and then you got the advanced options here. So you can choose to overwrite your existing resource, or let's say I want to rename my namespace to a new cluster. So let's say I want to restore to Yom-PostgreSQL. So basically part of the restore, we allow it to do the transformation. You might want to restore to a different namespace. You might want to say, I want to change the storage class. So I might initially use, let's say, ODF, it's OpenShift Data Foundation, or OCS, the old name. I might want to choose the GP3, for example. So you do have the option to change a different storage class. So for now, let me just rename the storage, the namespace. And I choose next. So you do have some other advanced options, click next. So by doing this, let's say I want to restore to a new namespace. And I'm going to click restore. Okay. So that's about it. It's all UI driven. And I mentioned earlier, even you're running existing Valor, who will discover you all of these, allow it to do the same restore. You can move restore to a different cluster, also doable.
But good thing is that can we use a VR strategy? You don't have to always keep running a cluster if it works perfectly. If you have stateless, if you take the backup of all stateless components and create a new cluster at runtime.
Yeah, I think you're right. If it's completely stateless, you might don't see much more importance because you can use your GitOps.
Think about that.
For the DR also
DR
another big thing. Yes.
It will be more cheaper for me.
Yeah.
Not a big storage. I just have to create a cluster with all like stateless things.
Yeah, that's right.
Can take the backup of stateless components also because in that
Correct.
Getting everything what's running inside a namespace.
And in case you guys are not aware, actually, for OpenShift, it does require you to have the UID override. Otherwise, it by default, the permission does not allow you to create a new ports.
Like running the previous container.
Yes, it's the permission stuff. So now, if you want to monitor, let's say here. So I'm going to monitor the restore. You can see, oh, actually it is fast. It's already up running and it's running in a different namespace. If I do the same thing here, if I do the get namespace here, and you can see now I got a 2 namespace. What do you guys think? Yeah, it's so easy, so simple to use. Yeah,
it's a good thing.
And the other good thing is it also the other guys, I mean, like a Cast and Portalworks, they charge customers based on the number of work nodes. I have 10 nodes running right now. Peak time, I want to jump to 100 nodes. They will charge you 100 nodes. CloudCasa say you don't do that way. We don't do that way. We just make it very simple. We don't care how many workloads or how many cluster you're running. We only charge you based on the number of storage consumption. So 100, less than 100 gigabytes, it's completely free. So that's why feel free to give it a try. And if it works, why not? And it can simplify your life. So typically, when you do the upgrade, before you do the upgrade, you better to have a backup. You don't want to screw things up. And then you realize, oh, when I want to roll back, I can't roll back. And then it takes ages for you to bring the application back.
Can they can run on my cluster, or it have to be it's SaaS offering kind of?
It's completely SaaS offering. That's if you think about it's up to you. It's to customers. If you are completely, I don't want to connect to CloudCasa. It's a Wi-Fi 443 HTTPS. If you can't connect it to the cloud, it's not going to work. But as long as you can have the proxy deployed to allow you to connect to CloudCasa web console.
Service deployed. Is this service is available within Australia?
It's
Or is
you mean the control plane?
yeah, because availability of control plane.
Okay.
Where they are being currently hosted in.
Right now it's hosted in actually most of the cloud providers, most of the software vendors are hosted in US.
It's all US.
Yeah, US.
They're not having hosting. In
No,
Australia?
not yet. But depends on customer requirements. I'm pretty sure they are willing to expand.
I'm just like for my own information, because
Yeah.
there is always a constant
Big problem
Yeah.
for a bank, yeah.
anyone who having that constant of location.
Yeah. But the thing is, only the metadata control data sitting in the cloud. Your backup data is still local, because your cluster is here. Your object storage can be also here, or even here, even better from Sydney.
Yeah, I'm
So-
totally agree with you. It's just like I'm like one of the constant people see security content.
Yeah.
Security. Do you allow? You'll say no.
I will not say, you're,
Mhm.
Okay, now we can host. Now we got to go ahead.
Just flag it.
Sorry, guys. Let me just quickly to highlight the diagram here. So this is very important to understand how it works. So on the left-hand side, I got a sample application running here, PostgreSQL, for example. CloudCasa actually, there is a lightweight agent deployed to a separate namespace. That's where it allows you to discover all of these Kubernetes objects. So once it deployed, it allows you to do the snapshot. And when you do the snapshot, where is my mouse? Okay, now it's here. It will capture your application configuration data. So basically capture everything. So the reason I mentioned earlier, you always you better to make another copy to the object storage.
This agent always have to talk to your control plane.
Correct.
Okay, so it will. So basically, that's it. You're asking, right? Your data is always local. Your agent have to talk to go at US and
Only the metadata, the control data going to,
it's reading. Your metadata is being read by this agent, right? From
Yes.
Whole data also, right?
not the actual data. Your actual data only sitting your local or managed storage by CloudCasa. Otherwise, you choose to bring your own storage, which could be your own AWS account or your own Google, or even your own premises object storage also doable.
Right.
And also on the left-hand side, yeah, I know today we talk about OpenShift, but literally any other Kubernetes is also supported. And then the beauty here is, what if I want to move to a different cloud, different cluster or different data center? It will be a lot easier because my stuff already sitting in the object storage, and I can easily do an import here. But you need to have the agent installed. Otherwise, except it's the 3 public cloud, we allow you to automatically spin up a new cluster. So for OpenShift, you deploy the agent, and then once you do the restore, just like a local restore, but we allow you to choose a different target cluster. So give you the flexibility, the mobility to across a different cloud or different Kubernetes distribution, different availability zone, or different region. I know it's a little bit late. I hope it is useful to you guys. Any question about here?
I have one last one maybe.
Yeah, go ahead.
So do you have any use cases which serves the warm DR kind of concepts where you just keep a copy ready in a destination cluster? Like, I have 2 clusters up and running.
Yes.
The foreign, let's say DR.
Mhm.
I have an application running here and I want all of that copy available all the time in my DR cluster.
Okay, so you're looking like a replication to the DR.
Like,
It is doable. So, for example, here on the left-hand side, you schedule the backup. Let's say I want to do the backup every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then from here, I can schedule the restore to do restore every 10 minutes.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of delay because it's a backup-based replication. But depends on your RPO or RTO requirements. It might be enough. But if you say, I want to do the synchronous replication, that's not something the backup tool provides. Optionally, actually, there are some additional features like, do you guys care the security? Huh? Do you know if your cluster, your containers is very secure? No idea.
You already break the security when you are giving any UID permission. Obviously, right? You give an any UID.
Huh?
You have given.
Yeah. I was just making it simple to. I'm with you. But in general, my container is running here. How secure my container is running here? You don't have much more visibility. So CloudCasa also have the built-in security scan. I'm going to scan your containers. I'm going to scan your configurations. I'm going to scan your cluster to see if it meets the CIS benchmark. If there is some problems, it will highlight, say, here is a problem. Why you are running privileged ports, for example, why you're running the UID, 0. So all of these, it will be flagged out. You do have more visibility. You can increase your security postures across the containers and also security, for example. Yeah, I know it's late. Yeah, this is just a screenshot. So what are the typical use case? You might want to do backup, do the DR, do the mobility. You want to simplify, upgrade the maintenance I haven't touched on yet. I'm running my old cluster here, 1.22. I want to move to 1.26. From a ROSA, you might run it 4.10 or 4.9. I want to jump to 4.12. The cloud providers, including Red Hat, it does not allow you to skip the version. I want to jump directly from 4.9 to 4.12. It's not possible. You have to do one by one. Same thing for AWS, I believe. Or you can now, but your product management team say we can't do it.
It's a version of Drive.
Yeah.
And 8 and 12. I think that you can skip it for the worker nodes of the control plane.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah.
I'm not sure about manager.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So the simplified upgrade is basically you don't do the in-place upgrade. In-place upgrade, if you do the EKS upgrade, which version? Is that 1.23 or 1.24? Once you do the upgrade, most of the stuff will stop working because of the CSI stuff. All of the PVC pending. You have to do something to fix that. So by doing this way, CloudCasa actually do the backup from your older cluster, spin up a new cluster. I do the restore to the new cluster. So you can work around that. You don't want to do the in-place upgrade. Then there is a problems stop working. You need to fix it takes a long time. So it makes life easier, do the backup, do the restore to the new cluster. So that's, we talk about the simplified upgrade maintenance. But it's a concept change. Traditionally, we always think about let's do the in-place upgrade, but there is a smart way. spin up a new cluster, do the backup, do the restore to the new cluster.
Go with autopilot. Don't have to do anything. Someone else will do for you.
Yeah, that's another cool stuff. Yeah.
You're skipping that just for your product.
I think that's almost what I'm going to sharing for today. Yeah, and I do including a few reference links. Yeah, feel free to try my automation code if you want to spin up new cluster. Next, I'm going to I try to demonstrate to show them how to migrate. So you might want to migrate from on-premise to the cloud, or maybe from other Kubernetes to OpenShift, for example. So how you guys do the migration right now? Is there any smart way?
There's a pipeline. Tell the destination. This is the new cluster deploy there. And get your all. Just kidding. Actually, it's the easiest way, right? Deploy. If it's stateless.
Yeah, the stateless it's doable, but your data application that's challenging. Yeah.
If you see very less customers are running real stateful workload on stateful workloads which require storage.
Yep.
On cluster like on Kubernetes, it's really great for stateless. So,
but actually,
all doable thing, like a lot of tools, the Valero and all this.
Yes,
But
you can use a Valero.
Strategy of doing whole migration we can't discuss now.
Yeah.
You always have MTC as well.
Yeah.
You can use a migration.
If you do migration within half an hour.
It's very complex because of the integration. So
That's right. Yeah.
if you architected it from the beginning, you can. If you plan to migrate from the beginning, you should plan to. I mean, if there's any advice, plan to always migrate.
Yeah.
Architect your application so that always migrate. You have a better time on the cloud. If you plan for it just to go in one place, you're gonna have a hard time migrating later because all the integrations. It's easy to move container from one person to another. You can copy with the backup, but imagine all that everything that it needs to talk to must be there as well. Whether it be on the cluster or not, so you have to think early, but later this all comes complement actually come quite significant. It's early on the Kubernetes.
Kubernetes is easy, it's more the integration is hard. And getting dependency resolved with other teams is more harder.
I know you guys are also very excited. I'm also excited to share more.
You have a lot of things, man. You have like still maybe 1 hour more required.
So this is normally when I was running the meetup in Singapore, people come here actually not just to come to learn. Some people are looking for job, and then some people say we are hiring. So this is why I put here. I also joined some other group. I learned some from other meetup. Yeah. So I think this is a very good topic. So if anybody is hiring, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah,
maybe Paul is hiring. Yeah.
Just stops hiring. The hiring phrase.
Yeah.
You should ask him if he's hiring.
Yeah.
I would say to you though, Red Hat is a wonderful place to work. So if you do see a job at Red Hat, go for it because it is a fantastic place, a great culture, and one of the best things about Red Hat is its culture.
You know why I do this? Because most of the time, if you do the apply, let's say from a Red Hat the career website, you don't even reach the TA team. The TA don't even look for the email. You do need somebody internally to help you to recommend.
So who you know, 100%.
Seriously, I worked for like over 20 different companies because earlier I also did some contract jobs. It's very tough if you don't have anyone internally to help you.
You've got 27K internal contacts. So you should be good.
But I'm still looking for a job. Hopefully.
How is that possible? 60 search, 27K contacts.
Anyway, I know it's later. Just to highlight our next meetup here. Very, very good. You know, I want to thank Red Hat for give us the place, and also not to mention on your way back, you can pick up one of the either tissue. This is a tissue. It's a very limited edition, definitely. Globally, you can't find it anywhere else. Only here. Or you can pick up one of the beanie. Melbourne actually is pretty cool. It's good, but don't be greedy. Pick up too much, okay? Only pick up one of these. And what else? I think that's.
Did everyone sign in on the
Oh yes, I forgot.
You have to go. Thanks everyone.
Oh, thank you for coming. If you guys, yeah, take a photo. Yeah, if you guys don't mind, let's have a group photo, please.
Can you have the first slide on this slide there?
Which slide you want?
Your K8S.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think that's the very good one. This one, you guys like this one?
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay. Can you guys all line up properly over here? Let's do a group photo, please.
Also, guys, if you hadn't filled out your name, I don't know if we're supposed to get it at the start. I think some people were doing it. If you could fill out your name and details on this iPad, if you've got a second before you go, unless you're rushing off.
Hey guys, yeah, please come me here. You guys are all part of my journey. Helping more people to know Kubernetes. Come over here. Yeah, let's do a group of photos.